Hi, I'm Alan Murdoch. For the past 20 years, I've been buying, fixing, and selling properties right here in Southern Arizona. And I want to buy your property. Whether it's a house, apartment, commercial building, or vacant land, regardless of the condition or the situation, I want to talk to you. When you sell to me, I pay cash and it's hassle-free. No repairs, no closing costs, and no commissions. If you have a property you don't want to deal with and you want a quick solution, call, text, or visit selltoalan.com. Again, that's selltoalan.com.
Discover the power of 88 Crime, where your anonymous tips are rewarded with cash. When you call in anonymously with a tip, you are given a code. With the code and a password, you can walk into a bank and redeem your reward anonymously. If your anonymous tip results in a felony arrest, you can claim up to $2,500 cash reward. Let's stop the silence on crime and strive for a safer community. For more information, please visit 88crime.org or call 88crime.
Copper Creek Cookies, Copper Creek Cookies, coppercreekcookies.net.
We can print anything on our soft vanilla logo cookies. We deliver them and other sweet treats locally. We are located at 4249 West Ina Road, Suite 121. Call us 520-300-1131. We bake smiles.
Copper Creek Cookies, Copper Creek Cookies, coppercreekcookies.net.
Hey, good morning and welcome to Southwest Flavor here at Live the Dream Studios. I'm your host, Ron Arenas, with one of my good friends and mentors, Doug Martin. How you doing, Doug?
Well, I got a horn there.
You
I don't
did.
know what that horn was for there, Ron. I thought it was
We're celebrating you.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
it was going to be a flatulent sound or something. And I'd be going, oh my goodness, this is going to be a rough show.
Right.
Well, good to see you, Ron.
It's good to see
Good to
you
be on
as
your
always.
program.
Yeah, thank you. So tell us a little bit about yourself. You've done so much stuff. You've been in journalism for a long time, and a long time here in this community.
Well, I have. I was born in Minnesota, but then I grew up in Albuquerque.
Okay, I didn't know you were born in Minnesota.
Born in Minnesota.
How long were you there?
Well, till I was 12.
Okay.
But my family's all from there, and we ended up in Albuquerque, and it was kind of an interesting transition. My mother, she divorced my dad, and then she just became kind of crazy for a while. She married this guy who was a Romanian gypsy who was wanted by the FBI.
Oh, wow.
So we set up a little scam restaurant there in Albuquerque called the Gypsy Candle. Which was kind of weird. We did Romanian, Hungarian, French food. I cooked.
You did? Okay.
Yeah. But it was really kind of a front for him so
Yeah.
he could do his con stuff.
Wow.
And then he disappeared, and so my mom ran the restaurant. And so I grew up in the restaurant business, and it's a really, for anybody listening that's young, it's a great experience.
Yeah.
Any kind of work is good when you're young.
Of course, yeah.
But getting that experience serving people, having to work fast, efficiently.
Yeah.
And
you have to get that food out. You have to get the orders right.
Yeah.
You have to have some kind of bedside manner to serve it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it really kind of prepared me for what I did because I ended up in radio.
Yeah.
Started as a DJ and then went into sales. And being in sales, the whole restaurant background translates.
Right. Yeah.
If you know how to serve people and you're sensitive and you can read folks, and see what they like, what they don't like, it'll help you in the sales side of things. So I did that, then management, and then I became a Christian. So I'm in Albuquerque and I made that change of life. I chose Christ. And then after that, my pastor said, well, you should be working in Christian radio. And I go, well, what's Christian radio? I've never heard of it. I'm at the top station in the market, right? We had a 33 share of the market, which is 33% of the people who are listening to your station. It was huge. And he wanted me to go to the Christian station that had no listeners, basically, But I did.
Was it like a rebuild or was it a brand new station? Or?
Well, it was a new one, but it was really when Christian radio was starting back in the 80s.
All right, yeah.
And that's a whole nother thing. You see, there really wasn't Christian radio till like the 70s.
Oh.
There wasn't a need for it because radio stations, TV stations had to carry so many hours a week of religious broadcasting.
Really?
It was part of the whole thing. And then when there was deregulation, that occurred, and also they changed some of, they used to have censor boards that would make sure all your TV programming didn't have something sexual in it or something immoral,
said,
right?
Yeah, right.
All that went away. And they also said, let's get rid of the religious, requirement. And so at that point, Christian broadcasters started. And so it was a new kind of a station.
Yeah.
It didn't have a lot of listeners, but I started working there in sales.
Yeah.
And then in 6 months, they made me the manager. I mean, God just really blessed me, as a salesperson. I did really well, better than anybody had ever done. And, because of that, I got moved up. And then my boss said to me, he goes, I want you to move to Tucson. And I'm going, Tucson? I don't even know anything about Tucson. And for you folks out there, some of them are Tucson lists. Yeah. Some aren't. But Tucson, I had no idea what it was all about. I kind of just pictured flat desert. Yeah.
The Coyote and the Roadrunner. Yeah,
really bad stuff. I pictured like, the Mojave Desert kind of thing in my mind, right?
Yeah. Some sand dunes and
nothing else.
Right. Yeah.
And so my boss wanted me to do that. I'm thinking, I don't want to do this. I love Albuquerque. I love the food. I think New Mexico food's better than Arizona. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But I mean, I just think it is. It's just, anyway. But anyways, I didn't want to leave. And I talked to my wife and she goes, we should go. And I'm like, really? Why? And then I had this dream. And in this dream, I saw this city surrounded by mountains.
Okay.
In my dream.
Yeah.
And then my pastor, who was Skip Heitzig in Albuquerque, was the pastor. He is the pastor at Calvary Chapel in Albuquerque. He goes, look, I'll go with you. I'll go there and start a church.
Really?
Yeah. So we're going to fly out. We're getting ready to get on the plane, and they bumped us off the flight. So we're sitting in this cafe and talking about it. I'm going, well, good. I don't have to go to Tucson. This is over, right?
Yeah.
This guy hears me and he goes, you're talking about Tucson. And I go, yeah. And he goes, what's the deal? And I told him. He goes, you're supposed to go there. I go, what?
Wow.
Who are? He goes, I'm a Christian. He goes, I believe you're supposed to go there. You're supposed to go there and do what God wants you to do.
Yeah.
So we came out here. When I drove in, we're in a moving van, never had been here before.
Okay.
I see all the mountains.
Yeah.
And it was
what you dreamt about.
Yeah. I just thought, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Wow.
And that kind of began the journey.
Yeah.
But it was hard.
Oh, so I bet. Yeah.
Yeah. When I first got here, some people may know this, but Grace Chapel owned the radio station here in Tucson. Okay. It was KVOI. Okay. It was 690 AM. Mm-hmm. I get here, and the church hadn't actually run the station for 2 years. My boss had run it, and he hadn't been paying bills because he's thinking he's going to buy the station. So he hasn't paid like leases. He hadn't paid taxes. He hadn't paid payroll taxes for 3 years.
Wow.
That was bad.
Yeah, that's really bad.
Yeah. So then I get here, and the deal's supposed to go through, and things are happening. I'm starting to see opportunity. We were doing well. We were starting to raise it up out of the ground. And then he calls me. He goes, you got to go back to Albuquerque. My bank said no. And I go, what? This is like a shocker, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So I felt like I wasn't supposed to go back to Albuquerque. He goes, well, if you stay here, the station's going to be bankrupt and you'll have no job.
Wow.
And so that was kind of the deal.
And did you have a family at the time?
Oh, yeah. I had my wife and 2 children.
Okay.
So I'm out here.
So you had a young family to support, to feed.
3-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Yeah. That's tough.
So it was very tough. So what happened was I went to the church, and they were like in a board meeting, and everybody in the meeting is crying.
Oh.
Because they just got the books.
Oh, yeah.
And they'd also signed the church as a guarantor for everything. So it was like
they're on the hook.
Oh, they're on the hook bad.
Yeah.
And the IRS, we owed $120,000 in payroll taxes. They were levying our account every 10 days, taking all the money out.
Wow.
I couldn't make payroll. I'd have to hold my paychecks. It was terrible. But they said, look, I told them, look, I feel like I'm supposed to be here and all that. They go, you can stay, but when the station's gone, you're gone. And things turned around, and it took a few months. And then they said, we want you to have the station. And I didn't know what that meant. I'm 29 years old. I didn't know anything about the financial part.
Yeah.
So I I need to get a bank loan. So I go down to my bank and I go, look, I'd like a loan to buy the station. And he goes, let me see your balance sheet. And I go, balance sheet? What's a balance sheet?
Yeah.
And he goes, stands up, shakes my hand, and ushers me out the door.
Yeah.
He goes, I never do business with someone that doesn't know what a balance sheet is. So I thought, I need to learn this stuff.
That's fair. Yeah.
It was fair,
Yeah.
but it was humiliating.
Sure, of course.
You know, I felt like
a life lesson.
fool,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, it was a great life lesson.
Yeah.
And so then things happened, and, you know, I was looking for somebody to back me, and I called on a guy named George Meal.
Okay.
And you probably know the Meal name. So
I don't.
David Meal, Cottonwood Properties, and Dove Mountain, Rita Ranch, and La Paloma.
Okay.
So anyways, George had just built La Paloma. And I go in to see him. He goes, you got 60 seconds to hit my hot button.
Wow.
And so I just told him, I said, I feel like I'm supposed to be here. Things are turning around. I need a backer. He goes, let me think about it. Then he calls me about 2 weeks later and he says, I'm going to back you. What I didn't know is, and I didn't know this till later, is that he was in the middle of a lawsuit on La Paloma. And the contractor had not fulfilled the obligations. People hadn't been paid. He was close to being in big trouble, like bankruptcy.
Yeah, yeah.
But then he got a settlement and everything worked out okay. So he became my backer. But then about 3 years later, you know, I built an FM station and things were going really well. And I get a call in the middle of the night. He'd been killed in a plane crash with his wife and 3 kids. So if you see that park on River Road, it says the Meal Family Park. That's him.
Okay.
That was for him.
Wow.
So that was like a huge shock.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I get a call from an attorney. They say, we need to sit down with you, you know, because, you know, he passed away and everything, and you've got a buy-sell agreement. And the weird thing was about a month before, I had this dream where George died. And so I told him that. And he goes, Doug, that's silly. And he goes, well, I told him in the dream, you died. And then I ended up with somebody that wasn't a Christian as a partner. I think it was your dad.
Oh,
because George was Jewish.
Okay.
But he become a Christian. So
Nice.
anyways, he goes, that's foolish. My dad has died. So anyways, I go, okay, that's not real. Well, anyways, I'm meeting with his brother David, who wasn't a Christian, with an attorney with piles of paperwork. And they go, you buy us out or we'll buy you out.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, well, I have no money to buy you out.
Yeah.
My other partner was in trouble at the time, Tom Regina, American Openings. You know, things had gone way down because of, you know, the economy. It was in the early 90s, 91.
Yeah, yeah.
After the RTC days. So, you know, I'm just going, that isn't supposed to happen, you know. So he goes, well, then I'll buy you out and we'll let you run the station, but it's going to be run the way George wanted things done. I've got all of his will here and I'm going to do everything. And he did. He wanted to do everything right. And I go, well, no, that's not going to happen either. And I go, what's going to happen is you're going to become a Christian and you'll be my partner. And he goes, well, that isn't going to happen. But it did.
Yeah.
But it took like 2 years.
Okay.
You know, but he was very honorable in everything he did. He refinanced everything for us, you know, and so we were able to move on because we were not in a really good position.
Wow.
So that was kind of the beginning part.
So you came here in the 80s?
Came here in 1985.
85, okay.
January of 85.
Wow.
And it was a weird time because there was a snowstorm then. We don't get a lot of heavy snowstorms here.
Yeah.
But people will be familiar with the road between Tucson and like Deming, that whole stretch there. That whole stretch had a foot of snow on it.
Really?
Yeah, so they'd close the whole freeway for like a day. Then they opened it up and there's like
it's packed probably.
Packed semis, and my wife's following me in a little Datsun. We had a little Datsun. It's like a little Nissan for you folks that are younger. And she gets run off the road into the ditch.
Oh, wow.
I stop the moving van and go out there, and me and my buddy were able to push her out. It was weird. She was like hysterical, freaking out, but nothing had happened.
Right.
And then we end up here in Tucson. It was really strange, you know, and seeing the city the way it is. And I didn't like Tucson at first. You know, for the first couple of years, I didn't like it. I kept thinking about the food back in New Mexico, all the history, because it's a completely different thing.
Okay.
You know, I don't know if you know this.
I don't know a lot of New Mexico history.
Well, New Mexico was never a part of Mexico. Okay. It was always a Spanish, you know, colony. So it was basically settled where most of Arizona really wasn't settled. We had presidios, you know, forts basically that, you know, where people were protected in small little villages.
Right.
But New Mexico is settled. I mean, they had Santa Fe was built in the 1600s, and it was, you know, all a little community, a little town, you know, so it has a lot, what I think is a lot more history, a lot more
further back, I guess.
Further back and more Spanish history.
Okay.
So the people there, like my relatives there who are Hispanic, they identify with Spain, not with Mexico.
Right.
So when you talk to people, they go, well, we're going to have Spanish food tonight. Well, it's New Mexican food. It's very similar to what we have here. You talk to people here, most of them identify with Mexico, right?
Right.
So there's this little difference between New Mexico, cultural difference, I would think.
Interesting.
It is interesting, but it all they ever were was part of Spain.
Okay.
And then they were part of the United States. So they have no real identity with Mexico, or we have a stronger identity with Mexico here.
Yeah, definitely.
So a little different culturally and all that. But it, for me, the adjustment here in Tucson wasn't huge because it's very similar demographically.
Right.
Very similar kind of communities.
Okay.
I felt, though, when I came here to Tucson was well ahead of Albuquerque.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I felt like we were economically booming at the time.
Right.
I came here in the mid-'80s. IBM was still here.
Yeah.
And then when IBM left, it was kind of the start of bad things here.
Yeah.
We lost, I think, 2,500 employees. And then, we've had some missteps along the way. I think Sperry was looking at coming here and other companies.
Yeah, Tucson over the years has pushed out a lot of corporations.
I mean, Albuquerque got Intel. And it was a really big deal. And, and I felt as I would go back and forth between the two cities because all my family was there. So we went back 3-4 times a year.
Oh, okay.
I'd go to Albuquerque. I'd go, man, Albuquerque's far behind, and then all of a sudden I'm going, Albuquerque's ahead of us.
Yeah.
And they had a whole rebuild of their downtown before we did.
Ah.
I mean, you may remember Tucson's downtown was a disaster.
Yeah.
Like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Then we went through the Rio Nuevo thing, which was terrible. They wasted $240 million and had nothing to show for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
So you know what it's like. Were you
I've been
brought
here
up
my
here?
whole life. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So you were born here?
I was born here. Yeah.
So you know Tucson.
I do. Yeah. Yeah. I went to Tucson High, graduated from Tucson High.
Badger?
So I'm a Badger. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Badger for life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a few friends that are Badgers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, those are good people.
Well, they are. Well, do you know David Garcia?
I don't think so.
He's an architect.
Oh.
So he's a big Badger supporter. He went to Tucson High School. And so he's always there. You guys are always doing like golf tournaments and stuff to raise money, for the sports.
Right.
And, things are coming along now. I think they had a pretty good year in football this year.
They did. Yeah. Second year coach. And he really turned it around. So he's a younger guy and not real young, but he hasn't been a head coach for a long time. Yeah. But he's turned things around. So I'm glad to see that. That's really nice.
It is good. Yeah. And speaking of that, one of the things I'm passionate about that, I know this is your show, but I've kind of like taken over.
No.
The thing I'm passionate about, I feel like at this stage in my life, because, we owned radio stations for 35 years here.
Right.
And then we sold them 5 years ago and we went into marketing and public relations.
Right.
Because my wife had like 22 clients that wanted her to handle their advertising. I just went along. I didn't really participate. I was pretty much, stunned, with the way everything happened when I sold the stations because I didn't expect it to happen so fast.
Yeah. And it happened all over the city because there was other radio stations that were being sold and transferred to, different radio station families. Yeah. Yeah.
Journal sold the Lotus. It was a weird deal. And I didn't want to do it. But my board, my partners, David Meal and Tom Regina, they encouraged me. They said, look, we see things are happening in broadcasting that isn't going to be good for the future.
Okay.
And we don't want to do this if you're not going to be there. If you retire or die, we don't want to get stuck trying to figure this out. We think it's more of a bigger group kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And we were a small group here in Tucson.
Yeah, you're just local here in Tucson, right? You had 5 stations here?
Well, I had 7. I had 2 outside Safford and, over in Lake Havasu.
Oh, I didn't know that.
2 FMs, but, mainly we were just here.
Right.
And so they saw that it wouldn't be good for the future. And it was something I didn't really want to do, but I said, okay, I'll do it if you want me to do this.
Yeah.
When I talked to the broker, he said it would take 2-3 years.
Oh.
And it was 3 months.
Yeah. It seemed to happen really, really quick.
Nuts.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of out of it. I'm dealing with all the legal stuff and transferring 5 of the stations that I had to transfer. I had to keep 2 of them, for 4 years, which was another weird deal. Okay. So I had 2 stations that we operated for 4 years just remotely.
Was that the Safford and the Lake Havasu?
Yeah,
okay.
They were K-Love stations.
Oh,
so I didn't have to do a lot. Just we had to maintain the
towers
records, the towers, and do some maintenance. But it was all K-Love programming, so that wasn't hard to do.
Yeah,
but it was just a whirlwind. So my wife started basically the agency, and it just kind of took off.
Right.
And it's done really well, and our daughter's taking it over, and so that part's moving. Mm-hmm. So what I've moved into is something different and something I'm very passionate about now, which is the next generation.
Yeah.
We want to make this city, because even though you're a native and I'm not, I love Tucson.
Yeah, you've been here a long time, and you raised your family here.
My children are here.
Yeah.
4 kids, 10 grandkids.
Wow.
And so I have a passion for the city. They all want to stay here. They
course.
all like the city.
Yeah.
But the city has problems.
Yeah.
And we've really lagged behind. We're a high poverty city. Mm-hmm. I think we're the 6th most impoverished city in America. We're the most impoverished city in Arizona.
Okay.
It's 2nd worst in crime, in the state of Arizona. We have a lack of business and entrepreneurship that creates jobs. So we have a lot of low paying jobs.
Yeah.
They constantly talk about housing and the issue of housing. Well, housing isn't so much an issue if you're making good money.
Right.
You can afford a house, but you can't afford a house if you're making minimum wage.
Right.
And they go, well, let's raise the minimum wage. That'll fix it. No, that won't fix it.
Just raise everything else.
It does. We got to have higher paying jobs. Just like you and your business, you pay more than what somebody does at, and I won't use In-N-Out because my grandkids work there and they pay them $18.50 an hour.
I love In-N-Out.
It's a great place. But you look at other places, they don't get paid that much. So my passion right now is for this next generation. So I formed a group here in town because I had a bunch of younger guys that are in their 30s, that came to me and said, look, we're tired of the way things are here. We want it to change.
Yeah.
And you old people haven't done a good job, but we'd like to have you involved anyways. I go, oh, really?
Yeah.
They go, so we got the young guys, and these are all highly successful, talented people. One of the guys has 7 companies.
Really?
And one of them is in 42 countries and will do $200 million this year.
Wow.
And he's like 38. But he was corporate America, and then he decided to start his own companies and buy companies. And so he's very passionate about this. So then I got a bunch of the older people, my age, who've been around a long time, many of them multi-generation, families that have owned things here and done things here.
Yeah.
But like when I called one of the guys, and wanted him to get involved, he goes, look, I'm done with Tucson. I'm living on my ranch in Idaho.
Oh.
And I hate Tucson. And I go, how can you feel that way? You're 4th generation.
Yeah.
Your family started the first real estate company in this whole city, right?
Yeah.
He goes, well, they just will never get it, whatever. Now what we formed this group called Tucson Business Council. When he comes to the meetings, he'll call me afterwards. He goes, Doug, I'm really excited. These young people really want to make the change.
Yeah.
And all I have to do is write a check. I go, that's pretty much what they want from the older people. They want advice and support.
Yeah.
So that's our goal, is try to make changes. It's a nonpartisan group.
Okay.
It's not a chamber.
Yeah.
It's not another kind of a business group.
Right.
What we're all about is trying to poke things and prod things and make things happen and use connections and influence to try to change things and transform things and work with whoever's elected.
Yeah.
I mean, we know here in Tucson, you're not going to change, it from a blue to a red thing as far as Democrat to Republican.
Right.
But what you hopefully can do is the people that are elected, you can talk to them and be at the table so they understand what businesses need to come here and stay here.
Right.
Which is a real problem.
It is.
I mean, many of the people I know don't want to do business in Tucson. They'll do it in Marana. You're very involved, I know, with the Marana Chamber and Oro Valley Chamber.
Oro Valley, yeah.
They'll do it in Marana or Oro Valley, but they don't want to do it in Tucson because they don't trust Tucson. They feel like if they do something there, they'll get the deal will switch on them halfway through. Yeah, which happens. Here in Tucson. Yeah. So that needs to change. If you want to, you've got to. It's like I was on the Tucson chamber. They did this election committee, so we would have to evaluate, about the candidates. So I'm sitting with one of them, and she's running for city council.
Okay.
And every one of them said the same thing when I asked the question. I go, "Are you for business? Do you believe in business?" "Oh, yes." "Oh, yeah, we support business. I love small businesses." I go, "Well, what happens if the small business becomes a large business?" She goes, "Well, what do you mean?" And I go, "What if it becomes successful and becomes larger? Do you have a problem with a business person that has success?" She goes, "Well, if they're a billionaire like Bezos, no." And I go, "Oh, so if they become successful like that, they're a bad person."
Exactly, yeah.
And I go, "Well, what about millionaires? Are they okay?" She goes, "Well, are you one?" And I'm going, "Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
There's an attitude here."
Right.
And they like small business as long as it's struggling.
Yeah.
As long
Just
as
kind of
they
hold them down.
keep them down, and you need our help, and we'll give you a few government contracts or whatever to keep you going. But if you become successful, they don't like you anymore.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. You've got to be able to work with people like that are successful in order to have success in your community.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Yeah.
So that's my passion now. That's going to take time. This is not going to be something that will happen overnight in the city.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Well, with that, let's go to a sponsor break.
There was a break.
Yeah.
I could hear music in my ear.
Right. And we'll be back in just a couple minutes with Southwest Flavor.
My heat and air were in a state of disrepair. My drains were clogged. I was really in despair. So I called some guy. You've never seen such a mess. And every time he leaned over, well, you can probably guess. Now I get it done right by Picture Rocks Cooling. They're neat and clean, peachy clean. Really no fooling. Got a problem? Just call them and help is coming. Picture Rocks Cooling, heating and plumbing.
Hi, I'm Alan Murdoch. For the past 20 years, I've been buying, fixing, and selling properties right here in Southern Arizona. And I want to buy your property. Whether it's a house, apartment, commercial building, or vacant land, regardless of the condition or the situation, I want to talk to you. When you sell to me, I pay cash and it's hassle-free. No repairs, no closing costs, and no commissions. If you have a property you don't want to deal with and you want a quick solution, call, text, or visit selltalon.com. Again, that's selltalon.com.
Discover the power of 88 Crime, where your anonymous tips are rewarded with cash. When you call in anonymously with the tip, you are given a code. With the code and a password, you can walk into a bank and redeem your reward anonymously. If your anonymous tip results in a felony arrest, you can claim up to $2,500 cash reward. Let's stop the silence on crime and strive for a safer community. For more information, please visit 88crime.org or call 88crime.
Copper Creek Cookies, Copper Creek Cookies, coppercreekcookies.net.
We can print anything on our soft vanilla logo cookies. We deliver them and other sweet treats locally. We are located at 4249 West Ina Road, Suite 121. Call us 520-300-1131. We bake smiles.
Copper Creek Cookies, Copper Creek Cookies, coppercreekcookies.net.
All right, welcome back to Southwest Flavor. If you haven't yet downloaded the app, you can go to your Google Play Store or your Apple Store and download it for free. Everything's free on it. You get different programs, you get music. Check it out. There's a lot of good stuff on there. So, Doug, you're talking about transitioning from your radio stations to a marketing and PR firm.
It's true. So, radio it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I know you do a radio show as well, and you've been involved with our old radio station for a long time.
Many years, like probably 13 or 14
probably
years.
13 or 14 years, maybe longer.
Yeah.
Back when my son-in-law was working with you, Joseph Jimenez.
Yep. He was my first sales associate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you look at the whole thing of broadcasting and what's happening technologically right now.
Yeah.
So broadcasting was a lot different, say, in the 60s and 70s. That was the golden years.
Yeah.
Right? So when I grew up, and I'm 69, going to be 70 years old, so that dates me, right? So when I grew up, there was only 3 TV stations and PBS.
Okay.
And then there were radio.
Yeah.
And then there was newspaper. And then there was something that a lot of people won't recognize anymore, remember, I guess. the Yellow Pages.
Oh, yeah.
Remember the Yellow Pages?
Of course, yeah.
So in terms of the whole advertising thing, that was it.
Yeah.
Take a look at what you've got today.
Oh, yeah. You have so many choices. It's actually hard to choose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the technology drives all that. So you go back in the day, when I started selling radio in like 1981, and our competition was the other radio stations, the TV stations, and the newspaper.
Okay.
But the Yellow Pages was the big dog.
Yeah. Especially being a contractor. Oh. If you wanted your name out there, you had to have a nice ad in the Yellow Pages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here's the thing about it, right? So our friend, Barb Jimenez, who is Joseph's, stepmom, right? She worked with the Yellow Pages for like 30 years.
Oh, okay.
Well, back then it was the kingpin.
Yeah.
So not only did it control that part of it, like as a contractor, you had to have your listing in the Yellow Pages.
Yep.
It'd be like Googling you today, right?
Yeah.
You had to have that.
Yep.
And the only way you can move up and get in the front, like the front pages of that section, was to buy a bigger ad.
Right.
Add color or whatever. But they had another thing. Do you remember the other thing they had that they controlled you with?
Well, they had a tracking number.
Well, that was later.
Yeah, that was later, I guess.
Okay. Because you're young.
Yeah.
So you won't remember.
Well, I'm not that young.
You're younger
but...
than me. We're going to go mountain biking. You're a lot younger than me. So anyways, they had your phones. They owned your phones.
Really?
So US
So they
West,
owned your phone number?
Yes, they owned the whole thing.
Oh, because US West had the Yellow Pages.
And the Yellow Pages. So here's what they would do.
Okay.
You don't pay your Yellow Page ad, they cut your phones.
Wow.
You're dead.
Yeah.
No phone calls.
No communication.
No communication. So you had to be in the Yellow Pages. That was a given. Every business, if you're in business, you had to be in the Yellow Pages. They had your phones.
Yeah.
So the whole thing was packaged. Then they broke that up. When they broke up all the bells.
Yeah.
Remember that whole thing? You're what, 50?
Yeah, 52.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. So that would have happened probably when you were in your early 20s or something like that.
I think
Maybe even teenage, right?
Yeah.
So when they broke everything up, they had Bell owned everything, basically, the whole country.
Right.
They broke them up into little pieces. They separated the phones. Then people could get into the phone business and come and lease you phones. Because that was the other thing. They leased you your phones, right?
Oh, wow.
So they had you with the phones. Then you had a lease for your phones. Then you had to have your Yellow Page ad. It was a monopoly.
Yeah.
So they broke that up. But
they made a lot of money.
They did. Yeah. They made a lot of money.
They had all the control.
They had all the control. The way Barb got paid, she was a regional manager. So all of her people didn't get paid commission. They only got paid if they upped you. They got a salary.
Oh, okay.
So they had to up.
So they had to upsell you.
Always.
Oh, wow.
And the only way they made more money was, and Dave Slavin. You remember Dave Slavin? He was there too.
I see him every week at the U of A basketball games. Yep.
Dave retired from there.
Yeah.
It was a great company.
Yeah.
They got a pension, which was very rare. So like Dave and Barb and all the other people, they got pensions. So anyway.
Wow.
So when we were out selling, it was very limited. You only had to compete. Yellow Pages, you couldn't say, hey, you need to cut your Yellow Page ad to a client.
Yeah.
They had to have Yellow Pages.
Right.
Newspaper was very dominant.
Yeah.
Today, it's not so dominant.
No,
Take
not
a look.
at all. Yeah. I don't know the last time I've actually picked up a physical newspaper.
I subscribe to the digital version because I want to know what's going on, but it's become less and less helpful.
It's become less local.
Yeah.
They just grab a lot of stories from the AP or, other sources that aren't local.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, back in the day, like when I moved here, they had a huge operation on Park.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Park and Ajo.
Yeah, Park and Ajo.
Yep.
So they had hundreds of people working there.
Yeah.
And they had
My mom worked there during high school.
What'd she do?
I don't remember.
Oh.
I don't know.
Yeah, because they printed there.
Mm-hmm.
They had reporters. Every reporter had a photographer with them. Imagine that. Now when a reporter goes out, they use their phone. Their phone, right? Every reporter had a photographer. They actually did hard news. They would go out there and report.
Right.
You don't see much of that now because they've got a handful of people.
Yeah.
They've got, I think they probably have a couple of dozen people now working here where they had hundreds before.
And probably most of them are sports writers, right?
They got a bunch of sport because that's what people are interested in.
Yeah.
They've got a little bit of local coverage, but they often use people that are like just kind of freelance people that write.
Yeah.
And they do you'll see a lot of op-eds and stuff in there. You're not seeing a lot of news.
Right.
And then you don't see much news like in the old days. Radio stations would have news reporters.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And some of the stations were like KNST before Rush Limbaugh.
Mm-hmm.
See, Rush Limbaugh changed the whole thing with talk radio.
Right.
Before that, KNST was a news station. So you'd tune in and it was just news.
Oh,
and they would have
really?
reporters saying, yeah, I'm out here on the street and we're reporting this thing that's happening on Stone and whatever. And
Wow.
it was really neat.
Yeah.
So you'd listen and you could hear things live that was happening in the community, but it was expensive to operate.
Right.
But they could afford it because, you know, when you only have 3 TV stations, a newspaper, Yellow Pages, and the other radio stations to compete with, they were making a lot of money. So those were the golden years for broadcasting. There was more money in it. You know, you could afford to hire more people.
Yeah.
You could have reporters out there in the street and all that. They can't do that today. So what's happened today, and most people are aware of this now, is people get their news from different sources.
Sure.
They listen to their music in different ways.
Yeah.
You know, you could do Apple, you can do Spotify, streaming,
sure.
whatever. Same thing with television. You don't have to watch the broadcast channels anymore.
Yeah.
You can stream whatever you want. You can. Cable's actually dying.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And the actual broadcast channels and cable, they're like you said, they're dying. Their numbers are going down.
They're going way down.
Yeah.
So it's a
They're
changing
struggling.
environment. And we see that in what we do working with clients now as a marketing and public relations company. We've had to shift things.
Yeah.
So one of the big things that shifted, and we realize this, and so a lot of the agencies aren't savvy to this. That's what we've seen.
Right.
Is that you can't just send press releases out anymore, you know, with the who, what, where, when, and why. In the old days, you'd say, this is happening, and it's happening at this time, and whatever.
Yeah.
And then maybe a reporter would pick up on it, and they'd come out and cover it.
Like a grand opening or something?
Or something, you know, you're doing some kind of a presentation or a celebration. Or
ribbon cutting.
Or, you know, or you're getting an honor or an award, something like that.
Yeah.
They used to cover that stuff because you had a bunch of reporters and they would go, oh, go cover this story.
Yeah.
They don't do that anymore. So what you have to do is you have to send them a story, actually written story.
Oh.
So you actually have to do the
You're
headline.
doing all the work, yeah.
You do all the work. You do the background. You do everything. So I'll give you an example. One of our clients, she won a national award for healthcare.
Okay.
And it was a big deal. But she sends it to us. She goes, oh, I'm sure people are going to pick up on this. I go, no, they're not going to. We've got to build a story. So what I did was it was about I built a story about elder abuse because she's an adult home healthcare.
Okay.
You know, for older folks, right? My age, right? So anyways.
Which that industry is growing tremendously because our population's getting older.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. So the way I did, I didn't go, you know, these people won this great award, national award. That wasn't the lead. The lead was I covered these stories here that I found, had to look on the internet to find them, of people that had been abused, either physically abused, older people, financially abused, which there's a lot of that. Some by their family members, some by, you know, people that were caretakers or whatever. So I had these great stories, right? And I wove them in there and talked about the whole thing. And then I had interviews from her. She goes, this is something we see a lot in our industry, this, that, and the other. And I had her comments on it and so on. And at the very end, it's like, and by the way, she just won this national award for being the caretaker of the year, right? Or caregiver of the year, right? Nationally, right? It got published. It wouldn't have got published without the story.
Yeah.
They want to actually have a story written, and then what they will do, they'll change a few things maybe, and then they'll put their byline on it.
Okay.
That's the way it gets done.
Yeah.
So today, that's quite a bit different from the way it was 30 years ago.
Definitely.
You have to do their work, and if you do their work, it might get published. It might get picked up.
Yeah.
And they will appreciate that. So now we know when we send stories to these people that they're going to look at them.
Okay.
Because they know that we write good stories. And it's not me doing it anymore. It's the team I have, which, you know, we've got my daughter, Becca, and then we've got Kennedy Cooper, who's Dana Cooper's daughter. And she's great.
Okay,
you know, and then my wife, Mary.
I had Dana on the show a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what he's doing now, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so he's with one of our clients, which is Gospel Rescue Mission.
Okay.
So same thing with Gospel Rescue. You probably see the coverage they get, TV and so on for when they're doing the feedings and, you know, like the blessings to go and stuff like that. if you give them stories that are good stories and send them little video clips and things like that of people that have been helped, like we do with Gospel Rescue,
Mm-hmm.
people that their lives have been changed,
Yeah.
they'll pick up on it.
Okay.
And it really is an amazing thing when
It
you look
is.
at that.
Yeah.
You've been out there, right?
I have. Yeah.
Center of Opportunity is an amazing, and that's another little side story, but I'll finish this about the technical
Okay.
things. So if you're out there listening and you're in business, you know, or you have a nonprofit group, what you realize today is that you've got all these different opportunities out there that we didn't have 30 or 40 years ago.
The landscape has changed.
So our advice to people is this. In the old days, it would be, I would sit down with you. I go, Ron, Picture Rocks needs to be in the yellow pages.
Right.
So let's work on that first. You know, let's make sure you have a solid presence, right?
That way people can find you.
Right.
Yeah.
So today, it's got to be your website and your digital platform.
Right.
So if you don't have that foundation built out, anything else you do will not work.
Right.
You know, you'll do other things that won't lead people to you.
Yeah. Because the vast majority of people Google, you know,
they do.
They say, I want to go to a Thai restaurant.
Right.
You know, they're going to Google Thai restaurants in my area.
Exactly.
You know, if they need air conditioning repair, they're going to Google that.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you don't have all those platforms, which could include Yelp and other things like that, right? Talk about a Thai restaurant, they're going to, all this stuff finds you, right? It all finds you. So you have to have that built out first.
Yep.
We had one of our clients had 1-star Google reviews, and yet they're a great company. But he never would look at that. He was kind of doing his stuff himself, you know, and he had maybe a friend doing a few things for him or whatever. But he never looked at it.
Yeah.
You've got to take care of that digital first.
You do. You have to respond to your reviews. You have to, you know, you have to try to not have any 1-star reviews and have as many 4 and 5 stars as you can. But you respond to everything.
That's
good
the
and
point.
bad.
If you get a 1-star, you got to respond to it, right? If you deal with it, that's what counts.
Yeah.
If you ignore it, you got a problem.
Yeah.
And then if you've got somebody doing something purposeful, what was happening to our client, he had somebody he didn't hire that decided he was going to take him down, you know, on social media and all that stuff.
And that stuff happens out there. There's no accountability.
No accountability. But if you expose it, and you let the, you know, Google know, whoever it is, the platform, then you can deal with those things. So you've got to do that first.
Right.
Then you do your other stuff, whether it's traditional media, radio, television, whether you do social media, ads, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, that kind of a thing.
Right.
You got to build your foundation first, and then you do the other things. And traditional may not fit with you, even though I was a traditional guy for all those years. It may or may not.
Yeah.
If you do choose traditional, you can't do a spray and pay thing.
Yeah.
Which is basically, you know, people go, oh, well, I'll do a little over here. I'll do a little over here, a little over there. No, the way you got to do it is you got to concentrate. Because if you're going to do traditional media like radio stations, you want to own that radio station.
Yeah.
A great story is this. When Jim Click came to town, I mean, you know Jim Click.
Of course.
So I met Jim when I first got here. I kept calling on him and I was relentless, right? So I finally get him on the phone. He goes, I'll see you, but, you know, I ain't going to do nothing with you. I don't have nothing to do with your stations. You know, this. I got in there. He liked me, and then we were friends ever since. He always supported us. He always advertised with us.
Yeah.
So when he came to Tucson, you know, he is the nephew of Holmes Tuttle.
Right.
So he came here to run a dealership, you know, for his uncle, basically. And so he started that dealership, Jim Click, you know, Ford. Didn't have a lot of money. So what he did was he concentrated on one radio station. He only had enough money to buy one station. Well, if you take one station and dominate it, to that audience, you're big time.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that nobody else knows about you. If Kim FM knows about you, or KNST or KVOI or whatever, and all those people go, oh, Ron Arenas, great. Picture Rocks, he's great, you know.
Yeah.
That's how he did it. So he went one station at a time, and then he dominated each one. And then that's how he grew his dealership.
Yeah.
And that's the way you got to do it. So first your traditional, or first you got to do the digital platform, your website, make sure it's up to date, make sure you got somebody monitoring it, making changes, make sure you're doing all your digital platforms first. Yeah. Then you do your other stuff later.
Yeah. I think probably about 15 years ago was when the websites really started coming into, you know, that you really needed it. And I resisted it probably for a couple years. I'm like, I don't need a website, you know.
You can't today.
But yeah, today you have to.
And there's
that's just bare minimum.
Well, you do. And there's another problem with it all. So when we got into this, my assignment from my wife, who had all the clients, right? She goes, well, I want you to check out digital, because I decided from the beginning I wasn't going to hire somebody in-house, you know, because I've seen that with other agencies and it sometimes works. Most time it doesn't work.
Right.
Because if you've got one person, they're very isolated. They're not going to know everything that's going on out there.
Right.
And you're dependent on that one person. So I interviewed different digital companies because I wanted to form a partnership so that we could do all the creative, you know, the content things like that, do all the placement, and then have somebody do the technical stuff, because it's two different sides of the head.
Yeah.
You got technical people and you got creative people.
Right.
And what I found is the technical people aren't very creative.
No.
They think they are.
They're different people. Yeah. They have different skill sets.
I've talked to them and they think they're creative, but they're not. So anyways, or not usually. So anyways, when I interviewed some of these people, I found there was a lot of smoke and mirrors. And I'm not a engineer or anything, but I worked around it for a long time. And I had to know engineering and broadcasting, because otherwise they take advantage of you.
Yeah.
Same thing in digital. So I found there was a lot of smoke and mirrors. There was a lot of people that didn't know what they were talking about. And then I would challenge them. Like one guy came to see me and I go, what makes you different? And he goes, well, it's our response factor. We get much higher response than other digital companies. I go, well, show me. He goes, well, look at this client here. They had 200,000 hits. I go, well, how many of those people translated to the website? He goes, oh, there was maybe 30. I go, how many of them actually bought? He goes, well, I don't know. I go, well, go back there and find out and then come back and see me. Well, he never came back because he was lying.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it wasn't true.
Right.
So the partnership we ended up forming, and it took us a while. I worked with 3 or 4 different companies until we found the right one, is with Webmo. So he has 23 different people working for him. We're exclusive with him, and we put him on our website so they can see Webmo. It's not like, somebody that's a ghostwriter or whatever. Yeah. It's like we're very transparent because we want people to know we're not doing the digital. They are.
Yeah.
But that's what we found, is there's just a lot of people out there that think they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they really don't, or they say they know what they're doing and they're lying to you.
Yeah.
And they can baffle you with BS.
Yes.
They'll come in and they'll use all this tech speak, right?
Yeah.
And you'll be going, oh, they must know what they're doing.
Yeah.
No. And it's one of those spooky kind of things.
Yeah.
It's kind of like going to a doctor and they talk medical speak to you.
Yeah.
And you go, what really is going on? And they don't really tell you, they're just talking medical speak. So anyways, there's that. But one other thing about the Center of Opportunity. So for those that are not here in Tucson, this is an amazing thing that is going to be duplicated, we think, all across the country.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it started off as a dream, as a vision of Gospel Rescue Mission.
Right.
And they were looking for a place to do it.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening is Humberto Lopez. Do you know Humberto?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
I see him every week at the basketball games too.
Yeah. Well, Humberto.
Yeah.
When I met him 30 years ago, it was not the same Humberto today.
Yeah.
So 30 years
done
ago.
quite well.
Oh, yeah. But he was also focused on his business. So when I would talk to him about community things, he was like, I'm busy with this and busy with that.
Yeah.
He's really changed. And it happened because Serena, had cancer.
Oh.
And, he prayed. And I said, God, please heal my wife. She got healed. This is about 6-7 years ago.
Okay. I didn't know.
So after that, he just said, I'll do whatever you want me to do, God, right? So they came to him and talked to him about this whole idea. He said, I'm going to give you a hotel. So that hotel, which when I first moved to Tucson, was the hopping place in town.
Yeah.
The Holiday Inn Holidome.
Yep.
You remember that?
Oh, I do. We had classes there and different conferences there. And,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was a conference hotel.
Yep. It was a conference hotel.
Yeah. And it had a really nice restaurant, bar, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It was a happening thing. And then it went downhill.
Yeah.
And then Bert bought it, and he's a brilliant business guy.
Yeah.
He came here from Mexico at 12,
Oh, really?
Yeah. Wow. He was an orphan.
Oh.
He worked his way through community college. I mean, he's a real success story, American success story, really. But his family were ranchers in Mexico. But after his dad died, the mother had to give up the ranch, and he comes here. But he is a Brilliant guy.
Yeah.
He just can see deals. He knows how to work deals.
Right.
He's got that talent, and that's a rare talent.
Yeah.
Not everybody has it. So he's done really well, and all the things he does pretty much work, you know. And so he donated the hotel.
Yeah.
And there's like 30 some agencies. I think it's 32 agencies that work there on campus to help these people get from homelessness to wholeness.
Yeah.
And that's a process. You can't just give somebody, because people go, oh, just give them a place to stay. It's a housing issue. No, it's not a housing issue. Not if they're addicted to fentanyl.
Yeah.
They
have a whole transition program.
Whole thing.
Yeah. It's a whole program. It's not just like you said, giving them a bed. Yeah.
And we've done the interviews with the people. And so you realize the real problem, right? When you talk to these people. So many of them have never felt any worth at all. So from the time they were a kid, they were told you're worthless. They may have been abused. They may have been in foster care. Lots of them were in foster care.
Yeah.
So their whole life, they just have felt worthless, right?
Right.
And so they get addicted, let's say, and they have no hope, right?
Yeah.
So it isn't as simple as like you give them some food, you give them, housing, and they're going to just fix their lives.
Yeah.
They need to have counseling. They need to have training.
Yeah.
They need to have skills so they can go out and actually get it done.
Yeah.
They need to have transitional housing. So all that stuff is there for them.
Right.
But people have to be willing to accept that help.
Oh, yeah.
And currently, the big problem I have with the city of Tucson is they have no plan with this, right?
Right.
So they look at, they go, well, like you ask Regina, our mayor, Regina Romero, she'll go, well, these people have a right to be on the street, this, that, and the other. That's freedom, this, that. No, it's not freedom if you're going to die on the street.
Yeah.
And you got to have tough love, which is like, you can't live on the street. You're either going to be in a program or you leave. Because if you don't give people that choice, they won't make that choice. They'll continue to do bad things. So like, you look at the fentanyl thing, right?
Yeah.
So
that's horrible.
It is.
And it's in every community.
Yeah.
But it's just destroying everyone's lives.
Well, and here we're a conduit because from Mexico it comes here, right?
Yeah.
So for $20 a day, you can stay high, essentially. Wow. It's cheap.
Yeah.
So Chad Kasmer, who's our police chief, great guy. Really, I'm grateful that he's there.
Yeah. And he came up through the ranks. He's a local guy.
Local guy, and he's a cyclist too, by the way.
Oh, is he?
Big time cyclist.
Oh, wow.
He's
Okay.
Very good. So anyways, Chad has said, people will ask, well, why are they breaking glass? Because they always break store windows, right?
Yeah.
In the store, because they're attracted to glass when you're on fentanyl.
Oh.
Why do they go into traffic and get hit? Because they're attracted to the lights.
Oh, wow.
So all this stuff, this is part of the addiction.
Yeah.
And when somebody's addicted, they can't just quit.
Yeah.
My niece was a heroin addict, and she was in prison when she was 19 years old.
Wow.
In jail, rather. She'd had 3 overdoses by that time. She wouldn't take, right? I sent her to a treatment program.
Yeah.
She lasted 1 day. She calls me, she goes, Uncle Doug, I'm going to come and live with you. And I go, no, you're not. You're on your own.
Yeah.
And she goes, all right. Well, 2 weeks later, she called me. My wife's upset. Everybody's upset with me because I'm being the hard guy, right?
Right.
She calls me 2 weeks later and she goes, I'll do whatever you want. I've lost everything. I don't have my wallet. I'm living on the street. I go, you're going to Gospel Rescue Mission.
Okay.
She goes, I'm not homeless. I go, yeah, you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are. So she went through the program, got clean and sober.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah.
And if you're addicted, you can't just quit. Somebody's got to put the hammer down on you to make you do it.
Yeah.
You've got to reach rock bottom.
Yeah.
And so we don't do that here in Tucson. You let people stay on the street. You let people live in the arroyas,
Yeah.
and they're just going to continue doing that, and they're going to die. And that's not compassion.
Yeah. And it's not a life to live either.
Well, no. I mean,
it really isn't.
Well, do you know Matthew McFerrin?
I don't.
Yeah, he does. He was homeless for 4 years.
Okay.
He lived under a bridge and all that. And I've asked him about how did you, because he does the Miracle Center now, him and his wife, Jennifer, So I go, how did you think that was okay? He goes, Doug, I was just so consumed with getting my next fix. I didn't think of nothing else.
Nothing else mattered.
Nothing else.
Yeah.
And he was raised in the church and all that, but
wow.
he just went off.
Yeah.
And then finally he hit rock bottom. He got help and he's been clean and sober since.
Wow.
And he owns his own business. He does cleanup at sites, at job sites.
Okay.
When they finish building the home, he goes out, gets all the stuff, and he's done really well.
Very good.
But for 4 years, he lived under a bridge here in Tucson.
Wow.
I mean, that's the deal. And you don't help people by leaving them on the street.
Yeah.
So that's my big thing with Tucson. They've got to put the hammer down so that these people will get help and they get into a program. Or if they don't want to be in a program, put them in a tent city outside of the city, and they can just do drugs or whatever, but don't let them roam the streets and break people's windows. And, steal people's stuff. Ride the crime, the free crime buses, around town, which they do.
They do. Yeah.
They go from one place to another, do criminal acts, steal your stuff and get back on the bus for free. This is not a way to get things fixed.
Yeah. I agree.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, how can we get a hold of Good News Communications if a small business or any size business wants a marketing plan for the new year? How can they get a hold of you guys?
Well, I have no idea because we don't have a website. And I wish No, I'm kidding.
Look in the yellow pages?
I'm joking. I'm looking in the yellow pages. No, you can find us at goodnewscommunications.com.
Okay.
That's the best way. You can go to our website, and our website kind of shows some of the things that we've done. And then you can get in touch with our team. And
all right.
I hear music again.
Yeah. I think our time is up.
I think it is.
Well, Doug, it's been a pleasure as always. So thank you for being on Southwest Flavor with us, and thank you for spending time.
Thanks, Ron. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And we'll see you next week on Southwest Flavor. Have a great week.